good evening and good morning wherever you are in the art world. So the Art Talks are delighted to have you again, once again, for another inspiring Art Talk. We are having three rock stars of the art world tonight with us. We have two female leaders in the art world. We have Maryam Eisler, a renowned photographer, and we have Sophie Neuendorf, president of Artnet, and of course the inspiring Darius Sanai, co-editor and founder of the Lux magazine and media, and also co-editor at Condé Nast. So we will be focusing our talk on Maryam Eisler's current exhibition on If Only These Walls Could Talk at Alon's the King Fine Art in London, curated by Helen Ho. So Maryam and Sophie and Darius and all our Art Talk community, welcome. I'd like to start with Maryam. Ciao, Maryam. How are you? I think we met a long time ago, and what I said is if I knew you from since a long time, your passion, your energy, your positivism, all conquered me, and especially because you once said you eat, live, and drink photography. This is all your life, and this is a passion that came after, later in the later part of your life, conquered you, and now it's your current passion, and it's we would love to know more about your current exhibition. We are very well. I know it's been a month. I think it's been a complete wonderful month because you've been non-stop doing amazing with your curator Helen Ho, organizing different talks every day. So this is our almost the last one, can we say? Thank God.
It's the last run, and so exciting, and what a wonderful way to finish with your great support and your wonderful platform. It's really great to be here, and thank you very much for organizing this. It's been an amazing month. It really has. It's been jam-packed with activities and talks and panel discussions. But I'm just delighted because it's if you want, I can tell you a bit of background on this. It's a story that's been very dear to my heart. It's a story that I've thought about for a very, very long time. And it all started with one image, which he took of Charlotte Rampling in 1974. And this took place in Arles, at the Nord-Pinus, at the iconic Nord-Pinus. There we go. That's the image right there. And I grew up in Paris, as you know, Carolina, and Rampling was a really important figure, cultural figure throughout the 70s and 80s in France. And she permeated, my brain in more ways than one. She was, classic beauty of the time. And for I was a young person, this image was very stagnant in my brain. And I always thought, how wonderful as my career in photography evolved in more recent years, I had this image in my head, and I said, it'd be wonderful to get back into that very iconic location and try and shoot my own perspective, on the feminine sublime, which is really the crux of what I do, photographically speaking. And after working a little bit at getting access and eventually getting the access in October of 21, I was given access to the hotel for a week, and it was our playground. And it was really fascinating because it was just after COVID. We still had needed paperwork to get into France. The city of Arles was completely and utterly empty at the time. And it felt really surreal, really, having this location as our playground with two models who are dancers who I work with, and an assistant, a dear friend, actually, Lola Sagri. And there we go. And so I just shot my own perspective on the Sublime Feminine. And I just really, this suite number 10, which is this iconic suite in the hotel, has a dual role, really. It has, this referencing to the Newton shot, of course, but it also has a referencing to Pierre-Louis Dominguin, who is an amazing matador. Bullfighting, as you know, is a very important sport in the city of Arles. And there's the famous Roman arena where Picasso spent a lot of time as well. And, you know, a lot of his symbolism comes from that arena. And he used to change, Dominguin used to change into his gear in this very same suite, and then would greet the people from the balcony of the suite down in the Place du Forum, and then go and meet his fate in the arena. So I was really interested in this female male tensions that occupied this location, this particular suite in the hotel.
Which legend living at the Lenore Pinou inspired you the most? Suite 10, you said, but what? There was some anecdotes that you can tell us more, Maryam?
Absolutely. The hotel is really more iconic. I mean, iconic in more ways than one, frankly. There is the story of Van Gogh, of course, you know, who painted La Nuit, his famous painting, just next door on the Place du Forum in the cafe just next to the hotel. The Nord Pinus has, you know, the likes of, you know, Cocteau and Picasso, who spent a lot of time bar between the Nord Pinus and the arena. You have photographic legends, the likes of course, we just mentioned Helmut Newton, but also people like Peter Beard, for instance, who spend a lot of time there. In fact, as you enter the hotel, the entire fresco around the ceiling is composed of Peter Beard's hand scriptures, his own hand scriptures. So he spent a lot of time there. Of course, the city of Arles is Les Rencontres d'Arles every July, which is the biggest photographic encounter, which was started by the famous Lucien Clergue, the photographer, the French photographer, who is a big name in Arles and who has inspired me a great deal with his shadow work. And also Peter Lindbergh spent a lot of time there in Camargue. And he, in fact, he used to use, I think, Suite 34, if I'm not mistaken, as his studio for many, many months. So it has seen some greats, icons of the photographic world, not to mention a lot of Hollywood, like the likes of, you know, Hemingway, Callas, you name it. Chaplin used to spend time there. Even Napoleon III spent a night there. It's like in that suite number 10. So it's really a very, very potent place in terms of storytelling. I've always found hotels very fascinating in general. Nord Pinus is just one, but you know, you can look at the Chelsea Hotel in New York, for instance, and just imagine all the stories of, you know, the writers, the authors, the artists who live there. You have the Chateau Marmont in LA that has seen passion, death, suicide, you know, and I always feel that hotels have these very potent stories because people have lived a lot of emotions and sentimentality. And these walls have, you know, are impregnated with a lot of personal stories and histories. And hence why the title, If Only These Walls Could Talk.
For your title. I hope I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
But Maryam, what we see, you know, it's this. In all your touching photographies, the Sublime Feminine has been a beautiful constant protagonist in all your works. And I think, you know, you are trying this, what I love is to trying to define the various angles, as you mentioned before, of the Sublime Feminine, always strong, powerful, and yet sensual.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I don't stay shy of it. I think we're all sexual beings, sensual beings. And, you know, I think that is definitely part of my definition of the Sublime Feminine, as well as intellect, as well as power, as well as Mother Nature, as well as mother, creation, creativity. And, you know, so those philosophical attributes effectively really have played a big role in my definition of the Sublime Feminine. And then there's the physicality of the concept. And in this particular hotel, I have to say there's a French word that came to mind a lot, and it's the word courbe. Courbe is the curve, right? So
Yes.
that's an adjective that in French language you can very much apply to a woman's body. As far as its curvilinearity is concerned and so forth. But you also use that adjective very much in architectural terms. So you talk about les courbes du plafond, les courbes, you know, of a space. So in that sense, there's a lot of going on in the hotel, whether it's the spiral staircase, whether it's the fer forgé that's used on the balcony of Suite 10, or, there's one image, in fact, you can see the beds here in this particular image. These beds are potentially as iconic as the mirror and console that Charlotte Rampling sat in front of, which happened to still be in the hotel, which I was so privileged to be able to photograph in front of as well. And there you have it. That's the same mirror, the same console as the shot used by Newton of Charlotte Rampling. So the beds, the console have a lot of twirl and whirl going on. And, so you can see this cool aspect, the marriage of the female form with the architectural elements of the space and place. And that was very important to me. I always try to create these, these tensions, these contrasts, these marriages of form and space, whether it's in interior stories, like in this case, or whether it's in, more open nature, the likes of, New Mexico or Iceland, where I play with landscape and I try to marry, landscape with the body of the woman, effectively. So I often have spoken about, and when I'm shooting, I often think about, this idea of body architecture, as well as the architecture of space, place, nature, and to try and create the tensions that go. Here you see a fabulous cool that takes place, which is the swirl of this grand staircase and marrying the body with around this curve. And the Nord-Pinus is very, very textured, not only in stories, but it's also incredibly textured in its architecture. And I have to say, my hat's off to Maya Hoffman, who owns the hotel today. Maya is a fantastic figure in the city of Arles. She's behind, some of the great cultural icons that have been taking place there, destinations. You have the Luma Foundation, of course, with Frank Gehry at its helm, architecturally speaking. Maya has 3 hotels. And she really utilizes and has, reaches out effectively to a lot of designers, the likes of India Mahtavi, the artist Jorge Pardo, who's taken over a hotel. And in this particular case, because I think she understands the importance of the story of this particular space in the art history of France, in a sense, she's kept it intact and very pure. And I think when you step into the Nord-Pinus, you're stepping into the history of space, basically. And my hat's off to her for having kept it intact. This image that you're seeing is a little bit of a clin d'oeil from my part towards Newton. Newton took a very important shot, an image he took in a hotel in Paris, where he is inside the hotel room, and the occupier of the room is seen from behind, opening the door to the maid. And this was my little clin d'oeil to the work of Newton, because I'm outside, shooting it on a reversal, kind of. But you can see, the importance of the fer forgé in the staircase. You see these beautiful posters of old, bullfighting posters, whether it's from Séville or from Nîmes or from Arles. There's, as I said to you before, there's a very, very big spirit of bullfighting and these tensions that exist. In fact, the wonderful thing that happened was that as we were in Arles in a very quiet moment after COVID, a lot of possibilities actually opened up for us, thanks to the management of the hotel, who took interest, some key figures in the city that took interest in the project, and they opened up, in fact, the arena, the Roman arena, to me, and we were able to shoot in the arena as well. So it really was, given the importance of bullfighting in the city, it was very, very special to have access to the arena and be able to play with these themes of passion, love, death. The 3 images, the only 3 images in the whole series that have been shot in color, as you can see here, are the shots in the Roman arena, because I entered and I saw this band of red that, circles all throughout the arena. And I thought, my goodness, and we were highly aided by nature. Every day that I was in Al during that week, it was blue skies, except for this one day where you can see the sky being incredibly atmospheric, and it helped a lot towards the finition of the image, that you have here. So you see woman alone, in the playground of life, I guess. And you see two women and the man. This man is one of the most up and coming toreros in Al. He's only 19. He was wonderful to shoot. And the women become the bulls, effectively. And it's a story of passion in the arena of life, I guess.
Beautiful, beautiful scene. It's the colors are striking, of course, and also the black and white. But is there one picture? There is one picture that I adore, Maryam. But is there one picture that you truly are? It's your favorite one.
I like two images. I like an image of the woman lying on the bed. Maybe Helen could show us that, with the shadowing going on, with the twirling and whirling of the bed, the fer forgé on the bed. Perhaps, yes, there we go, Helen. Thank you very much. This is one of my favorite images because it really, I shot it at night. I usually don't use any sort of artificial lighting or tripod. I really just shoot as I'm there, and I like to move around a lot. So I took in the atmosphere, effectively, of the room. There was a lot of shadowing going on. I tend to like high contrast images in black and white, personally. And I also, I'm not a precision photographer. For me, it's more about the feeling. It's more about the sensation that hopefully the observer is feeling when they're looking at this image. And in fact, I always had this great artist that I've always admired, Robert Longo, in my head. And Longo has these beautiful charcoals that look like photographs. And I wanted my photographs to look like charcoal paintings, effectively. So I want the end result to, I'm not shy of the grain. It's also a story which is very anchored in the 70s. It's a very story which is, has a lot of anchoring in nostalgia, in a sort of melancholic sentimentality. So grain really adds to that. It's the type of photograph that perhaps would have been taken in the 70s in that way. And in fact, I went one step further in the process, in the photographic process, which is I shot in digital, but then I took the digital file and I turned it into a physical neg, and we printed from the physical neg. And then I use a paper, a Hahnemuhle paper, which is very abrasive on its surface. And it adds to this, it's very pungent in terms of the way it absorbs the ink and creates these high contrasts. And if you see these in person, the surface of my photographs are very important to me. It's matte, it's abrasive, it's almost like watercolor, effectively. And that's really the end result that I was seeking, aesthetically speaking.
That's in fact, it's such a pity we can't be there. But how many pictures were in the exhibition that you?
9 images, and I have a funny one, Helen. Perhaps you can bring the image with the oysters and the urchins, sea urchins, to talk about, which is a fun one because there's a really funny story behind that. And imagine your own story as to what this could be. I mean, for me, it was more a scene of a morning after. India, who I worked with, who's the model, who's a dancer and a singer. She, to me, was a referencing to 2 classic beauties in France. Of course, we've talked about Charlotte Rampling, but the 2 other classic icons of beauty at the time of the 70s in France were Catherine Deneuve and Brigitte Bardot. And for me, she was more of a classic beauty like Catherine Deneuve. But for the funny story on this one, I sent the file to the gentleman I work with, post-production, and he said, "Oh, Maryam, I think you're going to be very excited when you get this file back." I opened it up. I was like, shock horror. I said, "What have you done?" Her feet was squeaky clean. And I'd actually asked her to go around the hotel, like literally walk barefoot to come back. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, that's the whole point on this image is, to have the feet not so squeaky clean. So can you please put the dirt back on? And which he did. And, it's just the reason why I've added is there's referencing to local elements, the sea urchins, the oyster shells, the crispness of the nap on the table, all that. I wanted layered, I wanted crisp, I wanted gritty. This grittiness, I think, is something that I'm more and more seeking in my photography as I develop.
Beautiful detail, actually, Maryam. If you didn't point it out, I wouldn't. I was more amazed, impressed by the table. So it's a beautiful detail, though. Thank you. And my last question before we go to our wonderful speakers: as your photographic odyssey found its way home, or are you still wandering through the Homeric landscapes of photography, Maryam?
If I'm home, it's the end of me. No. You always under photographic landscape. Homeric is a good one, actually, And I have these types of sirens, since you're referring to Homer. I do have sirens, which are basically, calling me all the time. It's, these stories that attract me, whether it's you start through a poem or a piece of literature or, a movie. At the moment, Il Gatto Pardo, the leopard, is really, yes. So I need to go to Palermo. That's where I need to go. That should be hopefully my next photographic adventure. And I just remember this fantastic grand ball that took place in the Palazzo, where you have Burt Lancaster and Claudia Cardinale, waltzing under the watchful eye of Alain Delon. And, that scene in that ballroom is just so passionate and so potent. I just need to go into that same ballroom. So if anyone knows the owner, you can help me out.
I might. I will let you know. But it's a beautiful scene, very romantic, very baroque at the same time, bellissima, flamboyant, bellissima. But thank you, Maryam, because now I would like to call two other of your two friends, art friends, that were connected to you, Sophie and Darius, through a wonderful friendship with Darius for his magazine. And also, we are connected through the Art Talk platform, the Art Talk magazine, because, of course, Sophie was also on our magazine, as you were with Darius. So we are not competing here. No, I'm joking. But it's a beautiful competition of artistic heroes. So I would love to know and to have Sophie. I don't see you, Sophie. Where are you? Ciao,
Hi,
Sophie.
Carolina. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Ciao, Sophie.
Ciao.
Yes, I can hear. So
good to see you again.
Yes, we were on
days.
another panel in Roma about the Web 2, Web 3, Metaverse. And now we are in a wonderful panel of love, of poetry, of women, women femininity, and what is to be. So I actually would like to ask you something, not so much about Artnet this time, not so much because we all know that Artnet is the leading web. And but I would like to know what do you think about Maryam's vision of women, and this on these various angles of the sublime feminine, always so strong and powerful and sensual. So do you see yourself into Maryam's world?
Would I be photographed by Maryam? Is that your question?
Maybe. We'll ask Maryam later.
Okay, no, absolutely. I would absolutely trust Maryam with that. And I would love to be photographed by her one day. That would be a huge honor. I really love what she is doing, and I've actually had the great pleasure and honor to watch her at work several years ago in East London. And that was a wonderful experience in a protected home that was several hundred years old, and it was really fantastic. And so I really see how she's at work and the concentration and really bringing out the softness, but also the strength of the human form and of the feminine form, and that was really lovely. I think it's great that she can portray women in such different and such multifaceted ways.
Yes, but do you see yourself into Maryam's description as a woman? Because you are very...
Absolutely. I mean, I hope I am. Absolutely. No, of course. I hope so. I think every woman, I mean, at least those that I know well, aspire to be at the same time strong as well as sensual and frail, but you know, also powerful. And I think there's so many things that you can be. I don't think any human being can be classified in one way or the other, or black and white. I think there's so many different grays, not only in the photography but also in life, and also in one's character and the way one lives. That I think expressing that photographically is really strong and is really great.
Yes, because you know, also you symbolize an inspiring female leader in the art world. You know, it must be very. No, it's very challenging and very difficult, you know. But as Maryam says, you know, I always will always remember what Maryam said. You know, sometimes when somebody is so beautiful, we are afraid to depict the beautiful into our lives sometimes. And it's Maryam's pictures are so they embody this poetic image of us. In a you know, that we can be all the different aspects of being a woman, and we shouldn't be afraid.
I don't think, for me personally, I don't think fear is the word I would choose. I think for other people often, or for the outside, for the observer, it's often difficult to reconcile a woman that is very comfortable in her skin and beautiful and whatever she is. You know, the beauty is something that's not only physical, but something that really is you know, it's something that she just projects, you know, and her confidence and her confident sexuality also. And to reconcile that type of strength with you know, being powerful and intelligent and hardworking and, you know, being all of these things at once, I think is difficult for other people, for many. I think oftentimes what humans like to do, and this is, I think, very, very human nature, is to put somebody into a box so that you can understand that person in a certain way. But to be several things at the same time, I think, is something that is not much to do with fear, but rather than, you know, judging somebody in a certain way in order to understand them in your mind, you know?
Yes. But which picture did you know, do you... I know Maryam, you know, as a selection of amazing pictures. Yeah. Which one did you
personally
was your favorite?
Well, of course, I mean, I love the beauty of you know, the play with Helmut Newton's iconic image, obviously. But for me personally, I think I really adore the image with the cake, having the sweets at the window, and also the one with the huître. You know, I love the food. I love the play with the food and the sensuality of it, and the pleasure that comes with in so many ways and so many elements. I think they're absolutely stunning. Yes, exactly. I mean, there's just so much sensuality there, and so much pleasure from the food, from life, from sexuality. I mean, it's fantastic. I love this image. Maybe I should also say that I have an absolute sweet tooth, so anything with food for me is yes. Well, what can I say? It's great for me.
Yes.
One thing about this tarte aux fraises, we spend half a day trying to find the perfect tart, just for the background story, for the perfect strawberries.
Absolutely delicious.
And Maryam, you have to tell us where you got it at the end. So we're all going to be in that patisserie.
Yeah. Next time I go to Arles, definitely look for that. I'm not sure I would recreate the photo though, but for myself, I don't know if I would. Well, if you were photographing me, maybe, you know, you never know.
The photo, one of these days.
One of these days, yeah.
Sophie, I think I also, you know, what Maryam was saying about the story of the fascination with the hotel space, memories,
yes.
and you've been traveling along, you know, where throughout the art world because of your wonder. Is there any stories that you would like to share? Something funny? No.
Yes, I'm wondering. Something
maybe at the end.
Story.
Maybe at the end. And no, I'm joking.
In fact, on one of my trips, I must have been quite tired, but I accidentally did walk into the wrong hotel room. It was actually it was the same room, but on a different floor that I had. And then I walked into the bathroom, and there was a man reading a newspaper, and I kind of asked him what he was doing in my bathtub. At some point after a conversation of about 5 minutes, I realized it wasn't my room, and I apologized and left. But yes, that did happen.
Okay, I hope it was a good encounter.
No, he was very cool. He didn't get out of the tub. He was.
Okay, thank God.
Because if it happened to him before, it was quite funny.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sophie. But one last before the time is running against us. Yes, I would like to ask you, in our last interview, you mentioned that what really makes you love art is the ability to highlight inequalities, affect positive change, and open dialogues. How can the soft power of art really make the world change through Maryam's beautiful pictures?
Absolutely. I think in the way that she highlights the possibility for women to be sexual, but also to be taken seriously and to be many of these things at the same time, I think that's something that many are still struggling with. I mean, not as women, but also women. Sometimes I think they tend, in all honesty, to judge others and say, wait a minute, but she looks fantastic, she's sexy, she's confident. Is she serious as well? Is she working hard? Is she doing this or that? And I mean, I think it's not only men that are doing this judging and trying to put you into a sort of very conservative, very traditional box, but it's also women that are judgmental that way. And I think highlighting that and making sure that we're all celebrating being women and being feminine and being confident and being all of that at the same time, not being afraid to express that. I think she definitely can do that in her photography, and that's something that we should be doing a lot more of. Because in actual fact, if we all supported each other as women, I think we would go a lot further in the world, and we would have make the world a much more friendly and open-minded place.
Very much.
Bellissimo. Thank you, Maryam. I think you are our hero. Or heroine, we can say that, la nostra eroina. But
you all, really.
And Sophie, Maryam, Sophie, one question to each other.
Yes.
Before we go to Darius.
Maryam, shoot.
Yeah. What's your next project?
It's not sexy at all. I promise you. Unfortunately, it's the opposite of sexy. I'm going to what's known as in Germany the Eigenkapital Forum next week in Frankfurt, because it's required by the German Stock Exchange to present the company there. That's my next project. But I wish it was working with you and watching you at work again, and just seeing the creativity. That would be so much nicer. That would be so much closer to how I see art. And if I don't go to exhibitions enough or go to museums enough and see artists at work, to really come to London and see you again and just see your exhibition and see you at work like I did a few years ago. I mean, that should be my next project.
Thank you very much. And of course, you're welcome anytime. We should organize something together. That would be, it really would.
Just alone to meet your bulldog also, by the way, who I have not met yet.
There we have it. Pablo's always...
Yes. Hamlet met Sophie though, but not yet Maryam. Okay, my little Hamlet. So thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Maryam. And now to our next guest, which is Darius Sanai. Ciao, Darius. Where are you?
Good evening, Carolina. Well, spiritually, I'm in the Alps in summer, but
I can see. Wow, what a light!
In reality, I am at home in London. But It's a great pleasure to be with you all.
I love the background.
Yes, we adore it. Today was snowing here, which was unbelievable, beautiful Christmas already. But Darius, so you are connected, of course, to Maryam and to Sophie through your wonderful magazine, the Lux magazine. So can you tell us what inspired you, first of all, to go through this journey and your friendship with both these two wonderful ladies?
Absolutely. First of all, great honor to be with you today. It's a little bit awe-inspiring to be on a panel with three women. I think it's very correct, given that the art world has been dominated by men for so many centuries. And I feel like I'm correctly out of place. So I think the discussion around the sublime feminine and the power of women to control their own path through the art world is incredibly important now. And I think this might be seen as a part of a turning point in art, where in 50 years' time, people are talking about women and men as absolute equals, which obviously hasn't happened for most of the history of art. I work in a very women-heavy industry in the media. At Vogue House, I've worked at Condé Nast for more than 20 years, and Vogue House, which is our London headquarters, at one stage had 780 women employees and 25 men. It's changed a little bit now. And it's interesting to see, having worked in newspapers before that, how differently things happen. The other thing I'd like to say is Maryam's works have to be seen in person. So the exhibition in London, which is on, I believe, Maryam, until the end of this week, is stunning. There's no replacement for seeing, because the quality of the prints is just so beautiful, Maryam. So the image that we've been discussing with the dirty feet, that's so gritty in real life, isn't it? Because everything is so textured, and then the feet are there, and it's I thought it was wonderful. So just briefly about me, I work at Condé Nast. I took over Lux magazine. I bought it with some investors 6 years ago. The media has changed since I started working in the media. Previously, it was stuff happened, the media made things out of it, and people read or digested what the media said. Now the media is made by everybody. Maryam's Instagram, for example, is a leading media, I think, in art and other topics, as are other people's media here. So the media is not just created by professionals. Our role, therefore, is to take on all the talent that is around and adapt ourselves to a new reality where the creators are the readers in many cases. And Maryam and Sophie are both brilliant examples of that. So Maryam has photographed several of our covers, and our covers feature prominent artists. The latest one is Cause, previously Jeff Koons, Marina Abramovich, and the artists create our logos for us. And Maryam has photographed many of them and helped create many of them and done interviews as well. Micheline Thomas was particularly memorable, Maryam.
She's a great artist.
It was a wonderful shoot, and Shireen Nishat. And Sophie is, we're honored to have Sophie on board as a contributing editor, and it's very important for glossy media not to be, previously a glossy magazine was a directory of stuff. We've moved away from that. So Lux is created by collectors and leaders and thought leaders around art and sustainability and the market. And Sophie writes very incisive, insightful columns around where the art market is, particularly with digital art, but not just. And it's an honor to have the leaders in the market rather than simply have a journalist interpreting what you're saying, to have you creating the content yourselves. Our job is to help shape it together so it looks beautiful, so it doesn't look like a cheap magazine. You can have a cheap magazine on expensive paper. So that's where our media teams come in, creative directors, highest level of photography. And then we work together with many luxury brands around the same types of topics, sustainability, art, and we're the global lead media partner of Deutsche Bank and Frieze around art and sustainability as well. So it's all part of an ecosystem that we create that is, Maryam and Sophie know what people like Maryam and Sophie want to read. So we're there as the interpreters and the curators, effectively, of the creators.
Wonderful. As I said, I can say only wow, because, then we were maybe copying the Looks magazine, because we had Maryam and Sophie without knowing actually on our last issue of the magazine. And Maryam, was so wonderful to make this connection with you, Darius. So we are very honored to have all of you on our platform today. So the other thing, actually, Darius, you haven't before. I would like to you mentioned already the beautiful and the sublime, but for you, what from your side, from your point of view, what is the difference between beautiful and sublime?
I think that
in a person now.
In a person, I think that sublime is an objective concept more, and beauty can be within interpretation. I think that the concept of beauty has been dictated to a large extent by, going back to the theme, by men over the centuries, and it's very good that it's now changing. I think that Maryam's take on showing a feminine eye on females, and Sophie's very good point about the judgment of women is as much about women, are both really interesting to absorb. I've worked at Condé Nast with fashion photographers over the decades, and it's fascinating to see Maryam's shoots because they are a completely different take, and they have something which even the best fashion photographers who are fantastic in their own way, and I don't want to compare, Maryam's is art, and there's a difference between art and the most stunning fashion shoot, which I might have on my wall in the office, and the art brings together a kind of theme around the subject itself. So you are creating something out of your subject matter and the backgrounds and the nopinus in this case, the details around the staircases, for example. I love the image shot in the store of the hotel, which just says it's quite cinematographic. So for me it's film. And there's the sublime there. It's a little film that we have here. We feel like we're seeing these stills from a movie, and I want to see the movie, Maryam. Is there one?
Darius, I have to say something about that image in the shop where she's reading the newspaper. I didn't realize until post factum, until the actual image was properly printed, because I gave, during the shoot, I gave India, our model here, the newspaper of the day. I didn't even think about it. It was just there and she took it. Once the image was printed in that large format in the context of the gallery, I looked in detail and the back page of the newspaper has a massive ad. And guess what the ad says? It says Atlas des Femmes, the Atlas of Women. And it's almost, I don't know, call it fate, destiny.
What a coincidence, no?
Literally unbelievable. And so it makes this image even more relevant and potent and, some sort of sublime power from above that made this happen, which I just really laughed with myself, really, more than anything else, that something like this just happened, par hasard.
And there's one more image in the store, isn't there, where it's closer up with the curve?
Yes. Now that is...
And there was one more, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's the other one with the two figures, where one jam jars and the other one standing. And that's a classic case of...
That's cinematography for me.
So that, I have to tell you, the first thing that attracted me in that scene was actually the curve of the architecture of that stand. So you see a semicircle at the bottom, perhaps you see that. You see that semicircle on the right within the shelving. And then I use my own semicircles from the body of a woman to sort of marry the architecture. That's a classic example of the courbe that I was talking about earlier, almost like a puzzle that I was trying to put together between the female form, the female body geometry and body architecture with local architecture.
Can I ask you one more question, Maryam, about inspirations? So many of your bodies of work have been inspired by themes that you have thought about quite deeply for a long time. What are themes and inspirations now? Because obviously the Newton shoot was in the 70s. What is there now happening that inspires you to do something either now or in 10 years or the next Maryam Eisler in 20 years' time?
Well, there's a side of me which is actually very sort of almost trying to collect current memories, trying to create a collective memory. One project, which I did with you actually, Darius, was, for Lux. It was during COVID times, and it was our Confined Artist project where I spent about 3 months, and actually Sophie very kindly covered the project in Artnet as well. And I'm so grateful for that. And it was my interviews with 165 artists during COVID times where I photographed them through FaceTime, and interviewed them in the process about what was going on in their psyche at the time. So that to me is stamping of a moment in time, a very important moment of our shared history, effectively. And now we have this body of work, basically, which I'm actually hoping to turn into a book soon, I hope, and perhaps with it. And, we're talking about some of the best artists in the world. And that was the beauty of that time, where we had actually access to these great minds and these philosophers. And that was truly wonderful. So that was, and then of course, the most important thing that's happening right now, I'm as you guys know, I'm Iranian, very proud to be. And, the situation in Iran is very dire, and it's very important to voice what is going on. So, and talking about the Sublime Feminine, what is amazing about, and I'm underlining the word revolution and not reform, because a lot of media outlets are referring to it as a reform, as a demand for reform. It is not a demand for reform. It is an absolute revolution that's going on in the country of Iran. And what is amazing, there's an absolute demand for change of government. And it was sparked at the catalyst were women. Women were at the start. Women were igniting the process only because a young 22-year-old Kurdish woman by the name of Mahsa Amini showed 2 strands of hair. And this is a very important thing. We haven't seen this in our generation, in our era, a true revolution that has been started by women. And now children and men have joined forces against bigotry, against tyranny, and for freedom. And it's very violent. It's very violent. And I just wish that more media outlets would be talking about it in a more detailed manner. So that is of interest to me, photographically speaking. It's also a revolution of social media. If it hadn't been for social media and the reportage that was being held by people on the ground that is reaching us here in the West and beyond, we know the gruesome nature of the happenings on the ground. And image has played a very big role. So I think the image combined with the role of women is fine, and perhaps there will be, something coming out of that down the line.
Definitely, Maryam. I think what you're doing, and what it's what you said. We all feel guilty when we see this, but the only power that we have is to talk about it. So exactly. I really thank you for creating this. Just talking about it today. It's really touching, and of course, it's touching all of us because we are here. And the only thing that I can see your post one after the other. This is the union, and our only power is to talk about the atrocities that are happening.
The art world is that it's the one area of the world where one area where it's soft power. The art is soft power. Where politics often fails, art can win, can open heads, can open minds, can open hearts. And this is one little pet peeve that I have at the moment. I think that the art world and artistic institutions in particular. I think artists are doing a great job at talking. I think, curators and art historians are doing a pretty good job at talking about it. Critiques are talking about it, from Jerry Saltz to Shiva Ballori, whether they are Iranian or not, they are talking about it. But the artistic institutions, which are the holders of, contemporary and modern Iranian art, do not talk about it enough. And I think this is something that, so hence why you are seeing these, just unexpected demonstrations that are taking place, installations that are taking place within, the Guggenheim, for instance, took them by surprise. There's a collective, unknown collective, who perform their incognito activities of creating awareness by unrolling messages of, Masa Amini, and are being greeted with a lot of applause within the context of the institution. So if the institution is not doing something about it, the artists are, and people are responding to it. Same thing happened just a few days ago at SF MoMA in San Francisco. And it would not surprise me if this will continue its own course throughout the institutions across the globe.
Wonderful. Actually, with Francois, we found in Italy, and of course, Freeze, with you, we found amazing people talking about from the country, and it was really touching that they were everywhere and that we could talk about it. But of course, it's a very challenging moment for many people, and so we are really, all our prayers are with this wonderful women, and that, as I said, we never met how brave was to just speak to one of these women that was sending their daughters, something that we would not ever imagine we could do. But
really unparalleled, truly unparalleled. I've never seen or met this kind of fervor for country,
Thank you, Maryam. Thank you so much. And again, I just before everybody flies away, because it's a weekday before Thanksgiving and before many other wonderful events, I would like to ask if anybody would like to ask anything now to Maryam, Sophie, or Darius. Please, this is the moment, because you are with these wonderful speakers today here. It would be amazing. And of course, I can see David.
Yeah. It's almost like a comedy routine.
Of course, this is the Art Talk comedy. Let's see, David.
Actually, I'm curious. I'm curious about something. I wonder this for myself. Can anyone say the difference between the female gaze and the male gaze when it comes to representation? It's a question I've always wondered as a creative myself, and just in general about art.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I can tell you,
especially with photography, Maryam.
I can take the example of Helmut Newton, for instance, because a lot of people have said there's a very varied opinion on Helmut Newton's work. Some people say that he objectifies women. I don't think so at all. I actually think that he presents women in a very strong and powerful manner. In fact, he had a way of shooting them from below, which really elongated, physically speaking. And they're quite strong and, fisted and very, very in control of their ability and their personality. My gaze, I guess, is a little softer, perhaps. Perhaps more emphasis on the sensuality rather than sexuality of the figure itself. I think with Newton's figures, and I love his work. I mean, he's been inspiration to me all along, except, he's a man and he has a certain way of looking, which is very different from mine. And But
is that because he's a man or because he's him and you're you,
I think female photographers have a completely different way of representing women. I think there's a bigger understanding there as to the way women might want to be seen, as that they're not so much put into a scene as it's more casual or more, I don't know. But Maryam, you're the expert. This is what I've observed.
So agree with. I can only speak for myself. Again, an individual. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or I'm just my own individual person, my own, perspective on things. For me, I always need. I'm quite a romantic human being, so I think sentiment is a big role in the way I portray things, or I want it to be portrayed in that manner. Whether I achieve or not, I have no idea. But I also like storytelling. I want you, the viewer, to be able to read a story into what you're seeing, and perhaps, again, going back to Newton's case, maybe the image itself kind of boom. It's much more boom than mine. So there's more. It's more punchy than mine in a sense.
I see that. Yeah.
I view images as poetry. I do talk about visual poetry. I wish I could write as well as I photograph. And, because I can't write, I photograph. And that's my poetry, And yeah, I think that's my previous work had to do with the passionate love affair between Edward Weston and Tina Modotti and his gaze. I was trying to imagine what a male gaze onto a woman, this passionate sort of gaze. So it was, they had a very passionate affair. They informed each other photographically and creatively quite a lot. He went to go during revolutionary years in the 20s, and they hung out with these bohemian circles of, intellectuals, the likes of Pablo Rivera and Frida Kahlo and so forth. But I wanted that passionate vision of a man onto a woman portrayed. Now, whether he looked at her like that or not, I have no idea. I would have wanted him to look at her.
Right. Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. It's always fascinating, your questions. I have to say,
I try. I try. I think all talk about what I'm going to say.
You see? That's why I have to ask you. It's a new homework, the art of homework. But I'm joking. So thank you, Sophie, thank you, Maryam, and thank you, Darius, and all the art talks. Again, it's been a wonderful journey, Maryam, to follow you and to see through. We have Ellen, who's been curating the exhibition, and it's been kindly sharing all the pictures. We wish we could have been there. I have to say, one day, hopefully next time, we will be in your space. But it's been beautiful. All the videos that you did was, you're so artistic. And again, it makes a different, you can integrate inside those plunge into this world of Maryam's poetry. So I really thank you all. And if anyone would like to say the last thing, Darius? Before I will meet you in Zug, in the wonderful.
I think that it's no coincidence that you and I have come to the same stars in terms of Sophie and Maryam, because I think creative minds think alike, and I think what you're doing here with these talks is fascinating. So it's been a pleasure, and always very interesting to hear a dialogue between someone like Maryam and Sophie and yourself. So it's been a pleasure.
And I'm adding my thanks really to Helen, of course, for her creation, to Caroline, of course, for your platform, goes without saying. But really a big, big thank you to both Darius and Sophie projects together, creative. And, I view it as creating beauty, and the world needs a lot of beauty these days. So to be able to do that and to have the platform to create this form of beauty with both Sophie and Darius has been a true privilege. So thank you, really.
Wonderful. And of course, I have to say thank you to Francois, that, if we start speaking to Francois, it was we would be here for hours. And unfortunately, you all have to go. But thanks to Francois, is the Art of Magazine, as its life is poetic, and it's done. Our last cover was with Sophie, and Maryam, of course. And again, I can't wait to have you again as a part of our talk in our talk magazine. Thank you, Francois. I can see you. You can say something. I know you're far away. But it would be lovely to hear your voice.
Actually, you know what? Very quickly, I wanted to say, I found this work to be not so, but different from the work done before, Maryam. And I don't know if it was the reference to Charlotte Rampling and to Brigitte Bardot specifically, but I found the models, the way you shot the models, different than you had before. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right. I think what I try to do often is to try and marry the style of photography to the story in question. I'm not a photographer who stays shy of trying new ways of shooting, new perspective. I know that style sometimes is important to certain people to keep a style going. I actually amend and mold my style to fit the story in question. So I think this is very much a story of the 70s, and I tried to mold my style to be a cinematographic approach to storytelling a story of the 70s. And I think it's the aesthetics very much part of that, the melancholy, the nostalgia, the grain, the paper, and the depiction of people, including the styling as well.
No, I mean, on the picture of the smoker on the second floor balcony, you could definitely have, kind of afterthoughts of Serge Gainsbourg.
The catalog of the show, I have a QR code which refers you to 5 hours of 1970s French music.
Mm-hmm.
The requirements with the gallery was you have to play this at all times.
Absolutely. Gainsbourg, Dutronc, etc. are definitely the soundtrack of this photo shoot without a doubt.
Che bello, che bello. So it's we have this nostalgia now of going back into these wonderful memories of. But we have your picture, Maryam, to inspire all our dreams today. Thank you, and really, I can't wait to see you and to hug you all. Hopefully, very soon. And again, I think we are going to have a couple of more art talks, but I think for December we are going slowing down. I think everybody is going into Christmas mode and working mode. And we want to thank you again, Crozier Fine Arts, to sponsor us, our art talks today. So thank you again. So again, have a wonderful evening, and I hope we can brindare very soon together. Ciao. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon, wherever you are in the art world. Ciao.